Just kidding. Sorry, that was a bad joke.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our Committee of the Whole work session. It's today, Tuesday, August 15th at 10:30, and on our agenda we have our minutes from our last work session, July 18th, and we have a couple of presentations. Our first one is Lake Superior North One Watershed One Plan. It's an update being provided by Elena Hansel, and I'll turn the show over to Elena.
All right, hi, it's good to see you all. I know I need to also come before you to introduce you more to our district, but I will do that at a later time. So I'm just going to provide you with basic background information as to what the One Watershed One Plan is, because it's been a while, and where the Rainy River Headwaters is at and where the Lake Superior North is at, and just provide you with some information. It's going to be a very broad overview because it's my job and I could speak for days and I don't want to do that. So I'll try to limit the amount of time. So I do have a presentation and just going to go over, because it's much more fun than staring at me talking, talk about what the plan is. So for water planning in Cook County, currently the county has 2 water plans. The plans are meant to help inform the county land use guides. What I'll try to do is just kind of also show you how it relates to the Cook County work that's being done. So, you know, we have that Cook County land use guide, and under that there's a lot of plans that help to inform it. So these help with that. And the county has a water planner. Years and years and years ago, before my time even, the role was delegated to the Cook County Soil and Water Conservation District. It used to be in Land Services, and then I have no idea why it moved, but it did. And so when I'm doing water planning, I'm representing both the county and the Conservation District. So when I go to meetings, I don't speak on behalf of the county, but I will often come back and say, hey, Land Services or Highway Department or whoever, you know, what do you think about this? Can this benefit you? Can you use this? Just kind of whatever I can figure out. So right now we have the Lake Superior North One Watershed One Plan. We also have the Cook County Comprehensive Water Plan that used to encompass the entire county, and now it just encompasses that top part, the north part of the Laurentian Divide, so the Rainy River Headwaters and north. Because the county adopted the Lake Superior North One Watershed One Plan. I'm going to dive very broadly into the Rainy River Headwaters because I'll need to talk to you about that in the future. So I want to just introduce you to it so that you can hear it and start to become familiar to it. A little background on water planning, because people are like, well, why do we do it? Who cares? Where'd it come from? So a little bit of history is that, you know, in 1997 there was a drought that was worse than the 1930s drought in Minnesota, and that led to legislation saying we need to do more for our water supplies, both surface and groundwater. So they developed the Comprehensive Local Water Management Act in 1985. The act allows counties to develop and implement the Comprehensive Water Management Plan. Notice the word local, both places. This isn't a state plan, this isn't a federal plan. It's a local plan. You don't have to adopt it, but the county has chosen to adopt the plan. And then the legislation passed this ongoing appropriations for the counties that's associated with the plan. So for Cook County, that's what's called natural resource block grants. So Land Services gets funding for, and it's little, it's like $12,000 to $18,000 a grant, but it helps for septic systems, for Wetland Conservation Act, and for the Shoreline Act. And then the SWCD gets funding for the water management and a little bit for the Wetland Conservation Act. So we get a tiny bit of money in the past that's been tied with that. Now that's changed, which I'll tell you later on what that looks like now. So the county and the state have moved to this One Watershed One Plan. So before, when we had just the county plan, it was just, bam, there's the border. Don't walk across the border. Don't work there. You know, we're not gonna worry about the fact that water flows everywhere. So that transitioned into this more holistic approach. So looking at a larger watershed, you can see we're the green area, that's the Lake Superior North. And then we're also working on the Rainy River Headwaters and Vermilion River watershed, and I'll show you more of what that map looks like, but just an overview of kind of where we're at. So also another question is, how are these governed? The watersheds in general in our area are governed by the policy committee. So that's a commissioner from each of the counties that are part of it, and then the Soil and Water Conservation District supervisors. Currently they meet around 4 times a year, depending on what's going on. That's just the average. We have a steering committee, so that's the water planners, and then often environmental directors or staff from each of the counties. Sometimes it's additional people depending on the size and who's been involved in the process. And then the advisory committee, which I will not read that list, but you can see it's quite extensive. So that policy committee is charged with saying, here's how you're going to spend the money, because there's money associated with these plans, and just making sure that things are getting done with it and it's not just sitting on the shelf. The steering committee, we're the boots on the ground. So we're the folks that are fiscally managing this, we're administering the funding, we're making sure that things are getting done with the plan and that we can report back to the state and to legislation. And then that advisory committee, that's all our partners saying, here's what we see is going on in the land, here's what we see for development, for whatever, it's huge. Here's how we see the plan can help your work and how our information can help your work and inform the plan. So we just kind of meet with them and to make sure we're not duplicating work, and sometimes we can, partner with our partners and get other work done. Questions so far? All right. So Rainy River Headwaters, oops, that's not correct. Sorry, it was not adopted yet. I apologize. That was a typo. But it covers Cook County, Lake County, and St. Louis counties and part of Koochiching, but they're so small they don't have to be part of this process or even adopt the plan, which they will not be doing. The plan will be done in the spring of 2024, and it's a really different plan because it's protection focused. A lot of the plans are like there's a ton of impairments of the sediment in the water, there's cow manure everywhere. Groundwater is really bad. We don't have that. We have a lot of federal land. We've got a lot of wooded area. But we do have work still that needs to be done in this watershed to keep and maintain that water quality. So can you click on that link for me? Is that possible? Sorry, I forgot I wasn't going to have control.
But it doesn't show.
It won't show.
Unless we do something.
Okay, so don't worry about it. That's okay. So there is, on North St. Louis's SWCD's website, there's a really good story map, and it can show you what the impairments are. So there's the few impairments that are in this watershed have to do with just dissolved oxygen, so not a lot of oxygen in the water, maybe some sediment in the water, and then there's like one lake has an impairment, and one river that's got too much E. coli. So it's really a protection-based plan. Did it mess it all up, or is it good? Okay. So excellent. So what we're doing then with this plan is our next steps is right now we're working through the documents. So we're looking at what are our goals, what are our actions, how are we going to measure these? And it's really hard with protection because you can't just look after a year and be like, oh great, everything's fixed. It takes 5, 10, 15 years to see impacts of protection. So we're trying to figure out how to do these measurable actions so that we can show the taxpayers that their dollars are going to good use and we're keeping the water clean. We're going to review the plan in its entirety as it comes forward. We'll also bring it forward for public comment to the commissioners. We're going to have public comment periods, partners and state will review it, and then the plan will be adopted next April or May by hopefully this board also. Actions, some of the actions we're going to look at, like forestry, trying to maintain more forest and forest biodiversity. It's predicted in this watershed and across the state that we're going to lose between 1 to 2 miles of shoreline a year from development. So what do we need to get out there to try to keep buffers in there? Because that's huge. That's a lot of shoreline. So those are just some of the actions that we'll look at, a lot of education outreach. And as I mentioned before, there's funding now tied with these plans. So this plan for that whole watershed, which I couldn't pull up the maps, but it's big. We're getting over $1 million to implement projects in this watershed. So that's a lot of money, and that's excellent. What are we going to spend it on? I don't know because we're not done writing the plan. Cook County has a very small portion, so we can't expect to be getting a ton of money. It might just be a little bit for education outreach or working with property owners and shoreline. But it's exciting to have some funding to do some of this work. So that's Rainy River Headwaters and the Vermilion River Watershed. We are working a little bit with Canada, but not a lot, but just keeping them informed because we do. And so any questions on the Rainy River part of the plan? Excellent. So now to Lake Superior North 1 Watershed 1 plan. We adopted that in 2017. We were a pilot for the program, for the project, so we're always learning and we're always the guinea pigs for everything. So the area covers Lake Superior, or Lake County, Cook County, and then all the way down to Knife River, and I'll show you that map again. Currently, we are the fiscal agent, Cook SWCD, for all the funding that's coming through that's called Watershed-Based Implementation Funding. So that's funding that the state says, here, Lake Superior North, you get X amount of dollars, go forth and implement this plan. We are currently amending the plan, so we're updating it. It's been 5 years since it's been adopted. We need to see what have we accomplished, what have we done with it. So currently we have priority areas. We have a tier 1, a tier 2, and tier 3. Those were developed to be considered with protection, water quality, biological impairments, for high quality resources, also declining quality trends, really high water quality, areas with high development or they're really populated, and then what's been valued by our community, state, and tourism. When we did this process, we had great public meetings, like 40 to 60 people would show up, draw on the maps, tell us what their concerns are, so we're able to put that into this plan. One of the areas that we're going to be proposing that we change to the policy committee is getting rid of these priority areas. What we're finding, because of our climate changing so fast and our population and just things have changed. For example, in the tier 2 for our area, Devil's Track Lake probably should be moved to a tier 1. The lake has declining water quality. We don't know why. We have a grant for 10 years out of our office, so it's every biennium we get funding to do a ton of work in that watershed. If we were just to use it for one watershed, one plan, we wouldn't have been able to get funding because it's not a priority 1 area. So we want to kind of wipe those tiers off and say these are our higher priorities for either protection or restoration. So that might be a change you might see coming forward, is that those colors may become one color. It'll just be two colored now.
I never hear anything about the Baptism River watershed. So there.
Yeah, there you go.
That's just interesting.
Yep. And which one's Baptism? That's down in Lake County.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why.
Well,
No.
That is why. That's exactly why.
So, yeah, they have work that they're doing, and I didn't bring a lot of the work that Lake County is doing, but yeah. Yep. And again, some of these are for protection, and some are for high bluff areas for different species. Just a lot of different things went into it. And there's more information in the plan that goes into detail for that. I'm not going to read through those. Those are our current priority concerns. Again, we were a pilot. We didn't know what we were doing. That's a lot of priority concerns. We found some we don't even come close to being able to do anything with, like construction and industrial operations. We want to leave that in there, but that's not local jurisdiction. So we want to keep it in there so it's a focus, but we can change things around. For example, timber harvesting. That should become forestry. We need to now look and see what practices can we help landowners with forestry, not just timber harvesting. So as I mentioned before, a lot has changed since we've done this plan. So these will be updated, different kind of goals maybe or concerns, and then brought forward to the boards to be able to update. But the policy committee does vet all of these and flush it out and look at it to make sure we're on track. So what have we accomplished with the plan so far? We've had a lot of big accomplishments. These are some of the big highlights to focus on, but Cook County's currently completing the targeted septic system inspection. It's going along Lake Superior, so that's the land services are utilizing these funds and checking that off the list. They also utilized it to bring some systems into compliance. It's really exciting because we've had stormwater management plans completed for the city of Grand Marais, the city of Two Harbors, the city of Silver Bay, and currently the township or the city of Knife River. That's huge because when we started this, the city of Grand Marais was like, meh, we got them on board. Then Two Harbors was like, whoa, Grand Marais is getting a ton of money and projects done, so they hopped on board. And then Silver Bay, who originally came and said, we want money, and we said, you got to have a plan, they now hopped on board, and Knife River's like, sweet. So now they're on board. So it's really exciting because it brings a cohesive way to manage stormwater and not just a Band-Aid solution, but we're able to look at some focuses. Here's what the projected costs are. Here's why we're doing it. And then we can reevaluate that plan in 10 years and see what's been accomplished and then reassess it. So it just keeps building on it.
Can we talk about that project?
We can, yeah. So we've done stormwater projects too. What would you like to know? Do you want me to tell you about it?
Well, yes, please. It's been long in the making, but I had a question from the community just about the type of culvert. Why not concrete?
I don't know why not
Oh, okay.
concrete where?
Instead of the the corrugated, the galvanized there?
Good question. I don't know. So originally, that was that pond, and the city came to us and said we need to do something with it. So it's engineered to withstand larger rain events, and then filter out the sediment because it's got a lot of natural flow paths going into it, as it's just a huge water system coming through there. And then if the development goes on the streets, I don't remember the street's name, off of 8th, if you keep going first, second, third, fourth and third, where that's all that wetlands,
sure.
you're going to totally change the storage and hydrology. So that'll probably influx this more, would be my guess. But right now it's set up so that it can filter through those pipes, sediment again, and then the metal, that's got risers in. That big pipe is huge. It's like the circumference of this, but it's got boards, so you can always change how much water is flowing through that also. And so it's meant then to go, it's the right size. The hard part with cement, which was in there before, everything grew over it, everything it just plugged it up. It was a mess. And so this way, it just seems more durable and better and easier and cheaper and easier to put in. So it also has a giant spillway to this side, so if we do get some of those larger 5-6 inch rain events in 2 or 3 days, it will spill on that side and slow it down. The large rocks help to slow the velocity of the water down. So, yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Yeah, so this is one of the projects, for example, that was paid with Watershed One plan. It did take 4 years. We ran into COVID, and then we ran into an archaeological issue, and so it just took a long time to work through some of those, but it's in the ground now and working. It's exciting.
Well, the city had been talking about it years before that.
Yes, so we're excited to get it done. Some other project examples with the funding is, if you didn't know, the 5th Avenue, that front lawn dig up, sorry, that was partially our fault, but not sorry, because it's going to provide attenuation. It's holding the water up on the ground instead of just sheet flowing down. It's going to treat the water. It's just going to have a lot of very long-term benefits. So people who have complained to me, I just said, this is a short inconvenience. It's for a very long-term benefit, and explaining it to them. So the highway department entered into agreement with the conservation district because we're the fiscal agent. We're kind of like the bank, and they went forth, and that's great. We're going to be doing a Village Ditch Nature Board Creek, which is on the right. That's after a rain event by the highway department in the business park. That's after like a 1 or 2 inch rain event, so you can see it's really flowing, but there's a lot of sediment coming down. So next summer we'll be working on the banks in there and trying to reduce some of that sediment loading, because that goes straight into Lake Superior also. The funding to be able to provide forestry assistance to both Lake and Cook County, education outreach programs. We've done a lot with that. And then that's another project that we did with the city. That's off of 2nd Street, so that's behind Aspen Wood, and by the sanitation district. There is no stormwater, and that's still not fully connected, for those who don't know, but eventually it will be. But that goes straight into Lake Superior. It just was a pipe before, so that helps now. Again, it's a sediment basin where they can clean the sediment out and clean it out.
And that one flows into that one, right?
Nope, it does not. I know, right?
Well, that's
that one goes
dentist?
way. Nope, it does not even go by the dentist, and it doesn't go by Tire and Auto. That one goes farther over, and it's a little tiny creek. I can see it, but I can't explain how to get to it.
When you say sediment loading improvements, does that mean you'll be doing some kind of basin trap for Nature Board Creek?
No, we're going to do natural, so we're going to do just some bank stabilizations farther up, not here. This one actually we went and looked at, and it was fascinating because this picture, you can't see it because it's not a recent one and it's so full, but it's created a natural floodplain again. And so it's got its own bank full. It's actually pretty cool if you want to see like nature in its best. Go check it out. It's got a whole new shelf. And so in our mind, it's like, don't touch it. Nature just did what it needed to do, and it's kind of resolved it. So we'll just kind of let it there and keep an eye on it. So.
Elena, on the courthouse front lawn, how wide an area does that drain?
That's probably a better question for the highway department, because I'm not going to remember, but I know a couple blocks up and coming down, but I'm not sure.
So like a couple blocks wide?
Yeah, we had it. I don't remember the numbers. I'm not a good numbers person. Yeah, we had a certain sediment load reduction that we had to meet. So that means they had to try to capture that much of the watershed in that spot. And originally they were going to do different things, but due to the bedrock, they couldn't put in the basements. We talked about tree trenching, and that causes more issues. So just that was kind of the solution we came up with. So. All right, thanks. So the next steps with the One Watershed, One Plan and the update that we're doing is we wanted to see what we'd accomplished and where we're at. We've hired a consultant to help with the plan writing. We don't have the capacity to do that in-house. We're updating the plan for content for data. When we developed the plan, there wasn't really any science or data for our area. I mean, like nothing. It was vast hole of no data. So since then, we have a ton of data and a lot of things we can update. So we're going to update the plan to that. We're going to reevaluate and reorganize to better accomplish our plan goals. Continually, we have advisory and policy committee meetings. We're going to have meetings with our stakeholders, for example, the lake associations or some of the special interest groups like we had in the past. We'll have public meetings. And then we'll bring the plan forward to all of you, of course, to review, and then eventually it goes before the Board of Water and Soil Resources for a final plan approval or update. So that's the One Watershed, One Plan update. But I'm not done yet. Funding, to toot our horn a little and talk about funding. So originally when we did this, so we get funding every biennium. We started with $387,000, a little extra. And then it increased. It's broken down in 2020 because the SWCDs as a fiscal agent, I said no, that we aren't going to work with septic systems. It's way out of our wheelhouse, and I didn't want that liability on our district. So you'll see that's why it's split. We were special case for the state, which we often are up here. So they let us do it that time. The next biennium we got $599,000 again with a little bit of extra. We are moving to over $1 million now in 2024. So that's huge for the county, for both counties to split. So it is something our district is discussing because it puts all the liability on our little tiny district of managing $1 million. So I don't know that we have the capacity to manage $1 million. We do already in our own budget, let alone taking on 4 other agencies, plus we have partners. For example, ARDC has come forward, or the city of Silver Bay will come forward and say, I need money. So that means we're managing $1 million. We're like the grant fiscal agent. So it might be an ask that we might come forward to the county to see if there's a way we can work through some of that and figure that all out. Plus, we get put into a different audited bracket once we start really reaching thresholds. So if we have a large project that comes through, and it's $1 million, and now we have a $2 million budget, we are thrown into a different bracket financially, and that's a lot for our tiny little office also. So it's exciting because we're going to be meeting now with the county, with the highway departments and land services. What do you need? Do you need positions? Do you need this? Do you need that? Let's think outside the box. We come together then as the agencies and the groups, and we bring it to the policy committee, and they get to decide how the funding's then spent. But we'll come forward. We have an application process that ties everything to the plan. It ties it to what's the environmental benefits, and then we divvy out the funding. There's a 10% match that's required that normally is met like within a year. It's pretty easy to meet. Even at $1 million, $100,000 for some of our projects, it's not an issue. Yeah.
Why is it increasing so much?
Because the state is shifting from doing, we used to be where we have to write grants for everything.
Yes, right.
So they've shifted now to more of this,
Oh, okay.
this here, each watershed you get this amount of money.
You're legit.
Yeah.
Do something.
Do something, go forth and prosper. Now with that being said, you're gonna say, whoa, $1 million, great, you can do this. It has to be project-based. It has to be, I can't say, sweet, I need 3 more staff because I'm really understaffed. No, it has to be completely based off of this. When we have admin time, I can only take, I don't remember, it seems to vary from year to year, 15, 20% of admin time split over 3 years because that's how long the grant is. That's not very much money for as much time. When we do these, we enter into joint powers agreement with every entity for every project. So 2022 has 6 projects. So each of those have a joint powers agreement with them that I have to track, and I track all the funding plus all the match, and then we get audited midway through each one of these. So it is not an easy process. So that's why when I say we might come forward and say, county, what can we work? Is it that we come to the policy committee and say we need an additional staff part-time to help manage these funds, because this will now come every 2 years. We get $1 million with this. So it's an exciting thing, but it's also a lot to manage and to be responsible for. So we're really excited for it, and I can't wait to meet with the Highway Department. We've already been talking. I've been talking with Land Services about opportunities and possibilities. So.
And this is the only, I mean, you may get other individual grants.
Oh
but
gosh, we still will have to have
Yeah.
grants to operate. So we'll work off our other 20 grants.
But
Yeah.
as far as the general funding that comes, it's this funding that's split to the two counties, or do you get something separate?
No,
Okay.
I don't, wait.
Like Lake County gets something.
No, so this is
This
the big,
is
this
it.
is a big pot of
This
money,
is it.
and it'll say,
Yeah.
we kind of joke that it's the boxing gloves, but yeah, it's like who gets what. You never know. So we'll come forward with just our SWCD office. I can already think of 5 projects. We usually have 500,000 because we just have a list. If you go in the office, you'll see a whiteboard just stacked high of projects. So we'll come in and say we need at least half, and then we'll write a grant for the other half. So on top of managing that, we'll have to manage all the match grants and write grants for those. So yeah, because we don't want to be hogs, but yeah.
When I was really excited for this increase because I thought that's what we have been asking for so long, and it is partly, but it's the operational.
Yeah, we need operational.
We need
This is,
that-
yeah,
we need that
this,
stability in order.
yeah, this, I mean, this technically could all go to Lake County and Cook County and Lake SWCD, and we would see nothing other than the admin, which is what happened in 2020. Most of that money went to everybody else, and in 2022, it's kind of split, so, yep. So yeah, this doesn't fund our office. I just want to make that clear because people look at that and they think it does. So.
But that had been discussed at the state as well.
So the
right?
state gave us SWCD aid. So the next 2 years we'll get, and I didn't write that number down, we'll get X amount of dollars. It's at a higher rate. It's for our budget, it covers 10% of my staff time, basically 15, maybe 20. And then it goes back down after that to really not cover as much, so. It was helpful and we're grateful for it, yes.
But I thought there was talk about trying to.
It is, that was what we got.
Talk about
Yep,
that,
so
but
that's what
no
we.
action.
Okay.
It
So
funds.
It could happen in the future if we continue.
That's what we have as our SWCD aid. What we need is increased, and the SWCD aid is like the county aid and the city aid.
Sure.
And so for across the board for soil and water conservation districts, I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. I think it covers 25% of the districts across the state's operational funds, and that's it. So we're still very underfunded, but we just make it work, and we're very appreciative that we at least have that a little bit. So, yep. So I am gonna go a little bit more, and then I'll be done. But with this whole process, we had to go through a performance evaluation. For Lake Superior North, it's a work in progress. It's reporting to legislation how these fundings are being accomplished. There is a process to it. So there were surveys sent out to the partners, the steering team, the advisory committee. An assessment was then completed and looked at what did we accomplish, what did we do, and that was all done by Bowser. And so I just want to share these findings because it's pretty cool. These are recommendations which we basically knew was going to happen, that we need to improve our advisory committee. We just didn't talk to anybody for 5 years during COVID. And there's a lot of staff change, and I couldn't manage it all. So we need to increase our advisory committee capacity, and we're going to be doing that. Developing strong working relationships and communicating with our partners, so continually to build that. And then we have a cost share program. So we have a policy. We're still always not fully clear what this says, and the woman who developed this moved on to another position, but we're going to look at our cost share policy and just kind of see what we need to fix with that. So we know we have some recommendations, which is great. It's a learning process. We do have some celebrations, though, is that we were commended for our work for implementing our actions, which is really exciting. We met 17 of the 22 applicable standards and practices, including having our guidelines in place and just our committee membership and just partnership working well. And we were the only ones, I think, in the state, if I remember right, that were committed for meeting all of our 11 high performance standards. So congratulations to Lake Superior North. That's Cook County and Lake County and the SWCDs were really working well together. So just wanted to bring that forward, that everyone's working really well and really hard, and you don't see that everywhere across government agencies. So we were pretty excited when we heard that. So.
Excellent.
So in conclusion, just for the plan, it contains 47 actions, and they were reviewed with the PRAT process. 39 of them are in progress or ongoing. We don't use that for watershed-based implementation funding. When we say 39, that means Highway Department doing their stuff, like with the culvert inventory and keeping that maintained, our office writing our grants for doing all our other projects. 4 of the actions we didn't identify that we had started yet, and 4 have completed the goals. And so we're pretty excited just to get that much work done in the 5 years with our staff capacities. We were commended for doing a great job of implementing this, and that the table of accomplishments was a full report. It's available upon request if you just want to sit and read a 20-some page document. So are there any questions? And that was not taken recently, thank goodness.
I just want to compliment you, Elena, and your staff on all the hard work you put forward. I sit on both the policy committees for Rainy River, Vermilion River, and also Lake Superior North. And there's just a ton of effort and collaboration with Lake County.
Mm-hmm.
And you and Tara in particular have done just amazing
Thanks.
work together. We're very fortunate to have this kind of leadership and kind of forward thinking that will protect our water for years to come.
Thanks.
Here, thank you.
So, any questions about anything? It was a lot to digest. Again, that's the big picture. So
I know we will be hearing more.
I know. So, all right. Well, thank you for your time, and we'll see you later.
All right, thanks.
Thanks.
Have a great day. All right, well, at this point, we're going to move on with our update on fiscal year 2024 budget planning. And we have Auditor Powers and Administrator Lewis.
Yeah, and so I guess I'll start here, but I need to get over to the laptop where Jana is to kind of drive the presentation. But
I'll do-si-do with you. 'Cause
okay, well, we're gonna broadcast, or we're gonna put the numbers up on the screen, and this will be especially fun for Commissioner Hawkins because we're gonna play with an Excel sheet. So, yeah, right up your alley.
So excited.
Right? So I just want to preface this by saying there are a lot of moving parts in the budget, as there always are. We talked about that in the Public Health and Human Services meeting. There are revenue sources that aren't entirely known at this point. And there are things like our health insurance premiums for next year, which we don't have yet. And so we hope to have those by the end of the month. We're putting in a 10% placeholder, a 10% increase, because history has shown us that, it can frequently be up to 10%, sometimes even over 10%. So we're trying to, put in a placeholder that's going to be reasonable and cover most circumstances. So anyway, a lot of variables to talk about. I'm going to get this up on the screen, and then we can start playing.
All right.
I think you'll need that mic.
Where should I sit, James?
You can just turn around.
Come on.
Okay. So that's the one. Okay. All righty.
What are we looking at now?
The loveliest people in the world. Okay. Now, Jana, if I push number 2 here, that's going to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll,
Okay.
okay, then just go. And it will show there.
Okay.
But it would also be broadcasting.
Right. That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. All right. So. I push 2.
Okay. Slide it over to that screen.
Oh, I
Slide
see.
it over to the right. There we go. Yep.
Okay. I see what's going on there. Where's my cursor? There it is. Oh. Okay, the presentation. The presentation is canceled. Hang on. Oh, for crying out loud. Okay. Thank your patience, even if you're feeling impatient.
Not at all.
I can't see my cursor. Can anybody see it? There it is.
There?
There it is, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Let's see, that only does it, it maximizes it to your left screen, right?
It should maximize the screen.
I know why they
Where I
call
pulled
it
it.
a cursor now.
Well done, Brady. Okay,
We can do this.
Jana seems to be more proficient
Well,
at
I
this.
don't know. We'll see.
No pressure, Jenna.
Yeah, right.
There we go. Oh, maybe now if you maximize it.
Okay, where is if it disappears,
Hey.
All right.
is that too big? Does it
No,
show
that's
everything?
perfect. That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So, oh, but now I can't see it on the screen.
That'll go.
Okay, I'm gonna do this a different way. Do we have a mouse? Or- Well, a mouse that talks to that computer.
We can,
I thought this was gonna be something.
we can make it stop,
Shoot.
I think.
Okay, I'll just tell you what, I'm gonna improvise here. So, how well can you all see that? Is that large enough? I can
A little bigger.
see if I
We have some
can.
old eyes in the crowd, mine are, anyway.
Okay.
Oh, perfect. Okay, much better.
You like,
Much better.
Well, it's not gonna talk to this laptop without a dongle.
really?
Really. It needs to, yeah. Okay, so I'll just, I'll kind of wing it here. So here's how things are shaping up so far with the proposed budget and levy and the use of fund balance. So the first thing that you're going to see, looking at the three major funds, is that across general fund, highway, and public health and human services, we're looking at approximately 14% increase in general fund and public health and human services, and around 7% in highway. A couple of things to note about that. For the general fund, we are not currently proposing the use of any fund balance. And so you might think, well, if we're not using fund balance there, why is the increase only 14%? And that's because we have an increase in revenues from county program aid and state PILT, and some other smaller categories. Those are the increases that are helping make the increase in expenses a smaller percentage increase than it would be otherwise.
Yeah, and in that, the ARC was a big surprise too. We got about 124,000.
Oh, that's right. That's right, because ARC is getting additional
100
funding from the legislature.
Yeah, so they bought 128,000 on ARC, and just got a surprise this summer. We knew that the state payment in lieu was going up, by that legislative change, the $2 to $3, but they had a valuation change this year that I didn't know about until we got the payment. So there's another 48,000 in here right now helping, because one of the categories had a value of about 14 million, went to about 20 million, and we get 0.75% of that. So that increase is in here now too. So.
And for members of the public who may be listening and watching this, we are not going to be proposing a 14% levy increase for 2024. We'll get to that at the bottom of the sheet. But in any case, you can see, and you heard this in the presentations from Highway and Public Health and Human Services, that they are planning to use fund balance. That 566, 645 for Public Health and Human Services is, the child care subsidy, wage subsidy. And highways also, we talked about the increased costs that they're having with, more expensive equipment, calcium chloride going up. And so they are also proposing to use fund balance. Part of that also is the construction of the cold, now warm storage shed. So with the use of fund balance in highway, they're looking at a 7% increase in 2024. Some additional increases in the airport budget, up 7%. Brady will talk about the bonds and the notes. We do have toward the bottom here. This is a really great way to put representation. So you can see we've also put in $280,000 for the HRA. And then we are planning to use $300,000 of our local assistance and tribal consistency fund, ARPA dollars, to offset expenses. We had Bruce Kimmel present on the financial management plan underlying the new CIP. We are proposing to bond yet this year. That and the cost of the debt service would be $110,460. And then we'd also be using some capital reserve funds also toward the building improvements. So when you put that all together, and again, this is the reason I put the spreadsheet up is because I want to have discussion about this, and we can look at different scenarios in terms of how we use fund balance. If you want to consider applying fund balance in the general fund, we can look at how that would look. But the way things are shaping up right now, with all of these data in place, we're looking at approximately a 9% increase for next year. Now that is higher than we've had in recent years, not as high as the levy has been at some points. Our goal is to make sure a big part of the increase is the salary adjustments that our market study recommended. And we're trying to absorb those into the levy, not in 1 year, but over 2 years. And so Brady and I have been talking about creating this glide slope where we're not absorbing everything fully this year, but spacing that out over 2 years so that by fiscal year 26, those costs are fully absorbed by the levy. And so that's part of the discussion and part of the reason that we have put together this recommendation for next year. Again, there are adjustments that we can make. If you want to talk about applying fund balance in the general fund, there are some notes here at the bottom, and I'll share the spreadsheet with you all after we have the meeting today. So just some notes at the bottom, and these may be harder to see. We are shifting $151,800 from the building fund to capital reserves, and then shifting $234,643 of capital reserve funding to our CIP bonds. Brady mentioned the reduction in the ARC budget. That's a big deal. The increases in PILT and program aid amount to about $385,000. And so that's a big deal. Let's see, other notable things, $140,000 reduction in highway costs. That was the exercise that we talked about at the presentation they did at the last business meeting. We reduced our MCIT refund by $20,000. That was something that was kind of just a gift.
Yeah, that's just an estimate each year, and they tell us don't be careful if you budget it, because last year is no guarantee of next year, but we've gone way down over the years. We've budgeted as much as $100,000 for their refunds, but they've gone down. They're budgeting tighter there than they used to. Mm-hmm. They used to overbill us all and then pay it back in big refunds. And we budgeted 60, but we only got 40. We just got notice of that, or of 33, I should say. I said, well, let's knock it down from 60 to 40 for next year and stay close to that number. That's all.
They're saying no dividend, right?
That's the same thing, refund or dividend.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, they had no refund dividend on one side, but they did on the other.
I just assumed the refund is, like you said, they bill for more and then they get it back versus the dividend. I just assumed it was a more holistic, I guess, but yeah, it's the same.
Yeah, that, my understanding, it's the same. It's the annual dividend or refund.
Yeah.
They do, I think they do have some earnings that they may apply it occasionally. Maybe what you're talking about is this special refund, but year to year to year, it's just based on, they do careful, let's say conservative budgeting, then they give us back the difference. They don't, like everybody else, you don't want to fall short. You don't want to give people a false promise and then say, hey, we need more money from you. So they're very careful to budget it, make us budget enough, and then give us back a little bit. So we just had to adjust it to meet what was happening this year.
So there are a couple of things. You know, if our health insurance 10% placeholder, you know, if the actual premium increase is only 5%, obviously that sweetens the pot for us, makes it a little bit easier to reduce cost and reduce the proposed levy increase. Conversely, if it's actually 15% or 20%, heaven forbid, that would significantly increase that cost. And so we'd have to look at some means of offsetting that with unbalance or something. So my purpose today was really just to show you preliminarily what these are looking like and to get your feedback. And we can change, all the formulas are active in the sheet, so we can change things if you want to look at different scenarios, whatever your pleasure is.
Commissioner Mills.
Madam Chair, this I just throw the whole financial management plan. We thought about the 3-year on or off ramping for the wage.
We've not talked about that.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, so the reason it would be, well, actually, that's
Because of the LITC up is a 2-year rebate.
well, it has to be fully obligated by the end of December 24, but I think you can spend it.
Into the reserve.
You can spend it after that. It has to be obligated and fully expended within a couple of years after that, is what I recall.
Commissioner Storr.
Thank you. I know you worked really hard on this. I would have appreciated it before. So now you're going to send this to us?
Well, yeah, but what I could have provided you before would have been a static representation of these numbers. And I thought it would be useful for us to be able to kind of experiment with the formulas and see what different variables would do to the big picture.
Well, it's a lot to go through because I believe you mentioned this morning that September 12th is when we're going to definitely talk about them.
That's correct.
So we aren't having any time between now and then.
Well, we could. I mean, we certainly could schedule a special meeting if there's a desire to do that.
I have a question about
Yeah.
the CIP bond
Mhm.
payment amount is based on how much amount bond?
That's 3.99. That was,
That was that original smaller one?
this is the smaller one, talking about not the potential expansion and the deferred maintenance on these 2 buildings, law enforcement and courthouse. It was what could we get started on the other buildings? Meaning the community center, the YMCA, et cetera, the highway department.
There's still a conversation that we need to have about the
Yeah.
timing of improvements here and at the law enforcement center while we're figuring out what our path forward is. I think one thing that we're going to need to do pretty quickly is to put out a request for proposals for a construction manager so we can start doing that planning. If you read the article on the Minnesota Public Radio website yesterday, Sandy Pappas said that they are going to be looking for projects that are ready to go, right? It's great that we have the CIP pretty much completed, and subject to your approval next week. But we also need to be ready so that if we are successful in getting bonding, that our project would be close to ready to go by the time that the legislature makes that decision in May of next year. And so the sooner we can start getting those pieces in place, the better we'll be able to actually receive that funding and use it. And I'm not going to oversell that because $7.4 billion of requests and roughly $1.6 billion available. So it's a tall mountain to climb. But I think there's some factors working in our favor.
So that brings the question, like, we're not budgeting for the larger projects that this thing is at.
Well, I mean, the $4 million that we'd be bonding for, I mean, that could be applied in different ways, right? We wouldn't necessarily have to use it on those other buildings. We could apply some of that to repairs here. What we don't know at this point is what the timing will be if in fact we are doing, if we get the bonding and can do the Justice Center. We'll have to have a whole conversation about the timing of deferred maintenance on those two buildings, because we don't want to do something that's then going to have to be undone immediately. And so we don't know what that picture looks like yet. And that's part of the reason that we need to, as soon as we can, get a construction manager on board who can advise us in how to stage those different components of the projects. Does that make sense?
I think so. My concern is just that our hands will be tied if we're not budgeting now for some of those bigger ones. But maybe that's not the time, maybe now is not the time to do that. That's just a concern that I don't want to be stuck with not being able to.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Commissioner Hawkins.
So the cost of a construction manager to do this, how much is that and where
That
does
is-
that show up here?
It is actually part of the overall cost of the CIP. So that would be paid for in part by the bonding that we would do ourselves or the state funds. Those costs are all wrapped up in that.
Commissioner Ward.
And what is that amount? Estimate ballpark?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I know it's part of the calculations that CRDPS did for us.
And it's in a spreadsheet someplace?
It is, yeah.
Oh, we were provided that? Is that part of that?
I think you have received that information as well, yes. I'll double check that.
Commissioner Hawkins.
I'm wondering about next year's budget then. We talked about doing 2 or 3 year, okay, this is what, if we approve it here, what does it mean next year if we need to bond for 12 million or 15 million? What does that look like?
We're looking at a couple of options. I was going to update it, but I can't here. I can't get to my H drive today, so I can't update it for you. But this scenario, move on to the next year, and I was looking at a couple of scenarios. Our long-term average levy since 1989, but also at a more near-term, about a 15-year look back, because things have changed, over a 30-year period over then a 15-year period. I think it has changed a little bit. So there's 2 scenarios there. Let's say the most expensive one, with this moving into the more expensive one, is going to be, the levy is going to be less. I can't get to my H drive. I can't tell you how much less. It's less than this one. probably in the 7 percentile range, but I can't get it for you right now, sorry. For the next meeting, or after the meeting today. Technology, I love it, except when it doesn't work. So,
I think we still have a lot of unanswered questions here.
yeah.
And I'm wondering, would anybody consider having a special meeting first week of September?
I will be unavailable.
Pardon?
I will not be here that week.
I'm game, anytime.
It might be helpful at this time to flesh out some of those questions if we can.
Yes, it would be.
Well, I haven't seen this, so I don't know.
Right, yeah. I guess I still don't, I guess I'm still not comprehending the bigger CIP. I understand there's tricky timing, but I don't understand how we're planning for potential implementation of the larger projects in 2024. Is that not?
That's something, that is something that we will need consultation by a construction manager to have more detailed conversations about. We don't really have the expertise in-house to have a fully informed discussion about that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so you hear my concern that we.
Yeah. No, I-
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I would think it'd be prudent that we include in this budget, maybe even discreetly, that project manager.
Mhm.
Pull it out, get that number, pull it out of this CIP and have that
Mhm.
and run.
Mhm.
But I guess we do still need a lot more discussions on what those projects are and to what degree we're implementing them. So, but I just don't. I don't know that we're. Yeah, I guess I'm not comfortable
Mhm.
not budgeting anything for that. Except for, I get it. We can use part of the CIP that's there, but that's not going to get us, I think, as far as what we need in 2024 to get going. But maybe that's just not practical.
I have the same concerns. I'm wondering, I'd like to see what it looks like if, instead of 3.99 million, and I don't know what that number should
10.
be. 12 is
Sure.
what
Well,
came to
there's
my
something
mind.
special at 10, isn't there?
No, we,
Less.
It's special.
But, so whatever we decide we need to do, I don't know what that is yet. Then we budgeted what that may look like. We don't have to bond for $12 million, but I would like to see what would it cost if we did. I'd like to factor that in. I mean, it's kind of like, you know, the discussion we had this morning of over budgeting what you're expecting. It doesn't mean we have to spend it. But what does it look like if we decide, no, we need $10 million to do this project? Here's what it's going to look like for this year.
It's probably what James is actually looking for.
It is the feedback.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, we're kind of in this strange in-between place because we haven't had the hearing, the official hearing on the CIP. You guys have not approved that plan. To me, the approval of the plan is really the beginning of the process to, you know, secure a construction manager and really start answering some of these questions about the timing, the phasing of these projects, which right now we can only speculate about. And I share your discomfort with that. I would like to have more information, but we're not quite there yet. And the sooner that we can start answering those questions, obviously, the better. And especially insofar as our bonding application is concerned. the more planning we can do before the end of this year, the better position we're going to be if we're lucky enough to be considered for the bonding.
So the idea of a construction manager came about because of the grant that we've submitted to the state?
No,
Or where does that place?
we were always going to need somebody with that expertise to help us implement this plan. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the way to go. I mean,
Yeah.
And I've talked to other administrators about this. They've recommended some firms that they've worked with that have been really good. So we're starting to explore that and get positioned to be able to issue our request for proposals to get that contractor on board.
I think I showed this before, but the city used McGough for the public works facility, and rave reviews. Very clear communication, regular communication, and really brought the savings to the table when there were opportunities for savings, and the quality was just top notch. And it sounds like they're using them again for some other project. I don't recall what that is. So, but that was a pretty competitive process. But I know we have to do the RFP and everything. I was also going to ask if, well, I understand CRDPS's contractual obligation is complete.
It is.
I was curious if it would be worthwhile to bring them to the public hearing.
We do not, I mean, that's next week. We have not asked them to be there, and nor is it really part of the scope.
No, right. It's an
We're
additional.
We're out of budget.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of very specific questions about data and analysis. And I was thinking that one of the best ways to address that is to have the engineers and analysts.
In regard to the hearing, I mean, we've had CRBPS here at our open house meetings. And they have responded to those technical questions. That is not something that I envision as part of the public meeting next week. All the technical information that's been developed, we have been responsive to the questions that we got at the 2 open house meetings. We've incorporated, and by responsive I mean we have incorporated suggestions into the plan where it's been feasible to do so. So my expectation of the hearing next week is that we're going to be receiving comments, but not necessarily giving another technical presentation on the plan. What I'm planning to do is give an overview of the process so that folks who may just be tuning in, I expect there will be a number of those, understand what we've done so far, the efforts that we've made to inform the public about what we're trying to accomplish here, and discuss at a high level the data that have been developed to inform the development of the CIP.
Commissioner White.
The hearing should be the opportunity to exchange information with the public and to really communicate with them and find out what their questions are that they haven't either thought of until they get to this or whatever, as opposed to coming here and voicing their questions or suggestions, and then this is an opportunity to talk, to have a conversation, talk about transparency. Yeah, we've tried a lot, but how many people out of 5,000 people that live in the county, what percentage has actually been engaged or in this?
It is a public comment period. It's not a conversation.
And that is how our hearings are run. Why do we have our hearings that way as opposed to these?
That's what the open houses were for. That's why we have those meetings, to have conversations with people. That is not the function of the public hearing.
Public hearings can be in 2 different formats. You could have a public hearing where you exchange with the people in the hearing.
That's not good practice.
No.
AMC says Google it, and you can even have 2 different types. And the positive part of having one where you answer questions at the hearing is that people feel as though they are really being heard.
Yes. Yes.
and they can have all questions. Doesn't mean they get what they want by any means, but if we're trying to build trust and be a transparent organization, the practice that has been ongoing for years is people will come, they will speak, then their concerns or will simply not ever be answered. If the vote will go however it goes.
Yeah, and there's two things missing in those statements.
Okay?
One is when they come. It's usually the 11th hour. That's one. The other one is you didn't cover what the cons of that is. The pros are, yes, that engagement and that responsiveness, but what are the cons?
That it takes more time. Takes a lot more time. And time is what we have.
What-
We don't have
No,
any.
it's not. No, it's not. We
Oh,
don't.
because we're going after the $8 million that we may or may not get.
That's not just it. This has been on the docket for 10 years.
And do we have any buildings that have fallen down yet?
Nigh on.
Getting close. I mean, that has been our practice, is to kind of let things fall.
But it's also staff turnover and just the facility's not keeping up. And so I feel like it's our responsibility to act. We just need to have the information we need to know what our needs are to know how to act. The hearing will influence that, absolutely. But it's not practical for people to come at the 11th hour and ask, did you think about propane heat instead of electric heat? Or, you know, that kind of stuff. That's way, you know.
That was months ago.
Right, and so it's frustrating, and this is what happens every time, for every hearing, it seems like. It's just, yeah, I don't have a good solution, but that's why I was thinking about CRDPS being there to try to address some of those detailed questions.
But then again, it's the time during a workday.
Mhm.
During a workday,
Mhm.
people that work in the courthouse can walk over and be part of it.
Mhm.
But the people that work, to get out of work, if you work like, oh, I don't know, anywhere in this county, at 9 o'clock in the morning or any of these times, is not convenient. And our hearing at 9 o'clock or 9:30 on Tuesday
Mhm.
is the same thing. It's the very same thing. So that if people don't come or participate, because the pattern has been that it doesn't matter. Everything is set up, or it seems to be set up, that it's very difficult for a working person, taxpayer, to make it and to provide input.
The brilliance, though, is you can do written comment.
Yeah.
And we did
And
And we have received.
we have had evening open house sessions. We have invited people to provide comments online, and we have received comments that way. So it's not that people haven't had the opportunity to provide input. That's just not true.
And there probably will be more coming before the 27th.
Night before, usually.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating, because the communication's not there, or the priority isn't there, and I get it.
But our responsibility is to the taxpayers and to get as much information out as possible. And with the strategic planning, is we need to have the community trust this organization.
And that's why we've done the process that we've done. That is why the last CIP had, my understanding is, there was very little or no opportunity for public engagement. That's why we have set up this process to have open houses, to provide opportunities for people to review information online, so that if they are working and they can't be here at a public hearing or at an open house, they have the opportunity to review the information, to provide feedback, and we've provided ample time for that. They've had that opportunity for months. And so any suggestion that somehow we are not providing adequate opportunity for people to participate is just completely off base.
We're not communicating well, and we're not getting the information out.
Well,
As much as we're doing, when there was a
You cannot make
YMCA
people pay
discussion,
attention.
that gymnasium that's no longer there out there in the barn was filled with community people. Filled, and there were different breakout sessions to talk about it. And that, up at the school, because we're talking about selling real estate to the county for the YMCA. And there had to have been at least 100, because the bleachers, as they went up, they were filled with people.
Well, and I would say there, at least for myself, I've had a lot of communication with people. just last weekend, I was at an area lake association meeting. It was extremely well attended. There were probably 60 people there. I presented some information on the CIP, showed them what was on our website if they wanted to look at documents. So people seem to be very interested and they're asking questions. So the engagement I've seen in District 4 has been very solid all along the way.
And I honestly don't know how much more transparent they can be. I mean, we have just put all this information into the public realm. You know, and we're sincere about wanting to hear from people, and we have heard from people.
The only other way I can think of is if we hold a fake hearing in saying we're making the decision, and everyone shows up with pitchforks, and then we do the real one.
I'm
I
not sure
think we
that-
tried to do it maybe a little bit too early. Maybe, like 2 weeks ago, we should have had, the open house, the gathering of people, just like we did back in February, March. But you gotta get it out there early enough for people to think about, what the possible plans are for dealing with our buildings. So, it's all a time thing. I've been to the townships, talked to them. You had people up in your district. I don't know. We'll find out next Tuesday.
Yeah. Commissioner Storley, you talked about wanting to have another meeting, a special meeting, and write a date.
I just threw it out there. I mean,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
just
know how
wanted-
everybody else feels.
I just wanted to think, if we wanted to put a placeholder, I was trying to look at something close to that date. What about August 30th?
I'll be in St. Paul.
It will be really important to have a clear understanding of what you are seeking before we have that meeting.
Right. I think I'll list the questions
And we all need to understand that there will be questions that we cannot answer before that meeting. Hopefully we'll know our insurance premium increase before then. But there are other things that may still be unknown.
Good.
I have a couple things I would like to see. I would like to see, I prefer to see 2 years budget, but at least 1 year that's higher with the bond payment than just 4 million. I don't know what you might write. He says 10, I say 12, you mean it's like 15. I don't know what that number should be, but we know we're going to need to bond for more at some point. We don't know what we're going to use it for yet, but we know that. So I would like to see a proposed budget. This is what our interest payment, bond payment is going to be if we went this route.
We can call Bruce Kimmel and have that conversation and get some adjusted numbers to share.
That's one thing that I would like to see. The other is, I would like to see the updated financial management plan. I know you did it, you saw it, but those numbers have already changed of our assumptions for 2024 based on the information presented about departmental budgets. I'd love to see that going forward. While HRA, another one that, we had in that plan, not correct dollar amount. So I would like to see that updated. 2 things, that's mine.
And we can certainly do that. We did say, I think we all understood when you all approved that on July 11th, that it would be a living document and that we'd have to make adjustments moving forward. So that's totally reasonable and we can do that.
Well, maybe if we have those 2 items, we have the update on insurance, we would have a better.
Oh, we have insurance? No.
End of
October.
End of August.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, I spoke with Northeast Service Cooperative last week and they were hoping 2 weeks.
All right.
That'll be very helpful.
Yeah.
That's an email promise, I'll
Yeah.
that,
But that gives us a reasonable timeframe.
I would also, maybe want to think about our fund balance, the use of fund balance for general. One of the reasons that I am so hesitant to use it is because we have so many outstanding needs. And we haven't had a plan going forward, so you just put money away, you save for that, for someday the plan gets developed. We have developed a plan, or the bulk of it, and knowing that, I feel a lot more comfortable using fund balance closer to the limit that we've set in policy before, because that's ultimately what I saw coming down the pike, was that big cost, and we're gonna need it. And if we got that covered, then I'm happy just keeping things at our set level.
So, in the PILT, the federal PILT money, we have a separate account putting money aside in the event we have to pay that back. So that's not part of the fund balance.
Right, it's not part of the discussion. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm just gonna say, fund balance, I really don't want to use fund balance to reduce our general fund amounts because of the payroll things or whatever that is. I am more leaning towards let's use that fund balance because this building, we budgeted is gonna cost $8 million, but guess what, our cost overruns and it's really gonna be $9 million, and that's what I see fund balance for.
Okay, sure. Sure, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. What about as far as just like the actual projects?
When
The
we
old
decide
ones.
which project we have and how much money we have, that's when we decide how much of our cash balance we want to add to that budget. That's how I would do it.
Sure.
So these questions that we're all coming up with to clarify, after we have our public hearing next week on, I understand we'll vote on that at that time. No other time, but it'll have to be then.
It has to be, I mean, our last opportunity to make edits to our bonding application is October 13th. That's the deadline. The sooner that we can get the plan approved, the better off we're going to be in terms of pursuing the bonding. I would be very hesitant to suggest that it would be a good idea to postpone the vote beyond the date of the hearing. I really think you guys should vote on that day.
Well, we pushed it back already.
Right.
I know I already asked for that, but I just, I don't know that I'm ready yet. I don't know.
I think we need to be ready, you know, and I appreciate the fact that we can get information, we'll have an update on insurance, the financial management plan, we can look at all those other pieces.
I have a hard time, when I look at the plan, I have a hard time identifying, I'm really grateful and impressed by the prioritization. And I have a hard time identifying anything that, no, we don't need that. And so for me, it's like, well, yeah, this is all of our needs and what we need. This is the plan. Like, that's the easy part in my mind. The hard part is really getting into specifics. What is going to be the better operational? What's going to make things more efficient, both from a staffing viewpoint as well as just a building maintenance viewpoint? You know, that's where it gets a little trickier for me. And so I really appreciate the discussion we've had with Judge Kuzo and the department directors and the sheriff. And yeah, we're not voting on a Cadillac or you know, we're really just voting on a path forward here, and I feel pretty comfortable. I am nervous about the public hearing just because, like I said, how it always goes is the last minute is people throwing stuff that not literally, but throwing questions that are just
Possibly literally.
I haven't seen that. Except on YouTube. So, yeah, I certainly am sensitive to the trust issue in the community and the communication. I feel like I've had a good amount of communication. It's never enough, but I guess when commissioners say they're not ready, like, what would make you more ready? Like, what's?
Go ahead, Commissioner. Me, what I'm not ready is to say that I agree, if we get state bonding money, I think the Justice Center makes the most sense. If we do not get state bonding, I do not think the Justice Center makes the most sense. So I am worried about signing on to a resolution that says, yes, we support Justice Center, and then next year, next July, 1 year from now, whatever, we find out, no, Cook County, it's all on you. That's where my hesitation comes in. Because I don't think the Justice Center is the best solution.
Can we talk more about that?
Yeah, what do you want to know?
Why? So when I look at our systems and our organization, I try to see what's going to make the most efficiencies in operating as well as in maintaining. Whether we get state money or not, I still feel like those priorities and goals don't change. It's just where the money comes from to accomplish those. And what I'm inferring from what you're saying is that our priorities change based on whether or not we have state dollars. Is that kind of, or what? Like, how does that determine? I guess?
We were given 3 options by CRDPS.
Yep.
And I hadn't decided which one was the best option. I was still working through that.
Mm-hmm.
When state bonding became an option for one of the plans,
Mm-hmm.
like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I hesitantly said
Yep.
yes,
Yep.
just to that one.
Yep, I remember.
I'm not so sure the other two. If we don't get state bonding, maybe one of the other two is a good plan. I don't know.
So here's the thing about, anyway, sit back down at the table so I can be talking into the microphone. The thing about the CIP is that it is also like the financial management plan. It's a living document, right? As we move forward, we may discover, just as an example, we may discover that there's a giant crack in the foundation of the courthouse. That's a game changer, right? Maybe we can't fix that. So we've got a CIP that says, well, we're going to do X, Y, and Z repairs on the courthouse. And by God, we're going to do them because that's what the plan says. No, that's not what we're going to do. We're going to change gears because we have to, because we have new information. So I think, if there's any angst around approving the CIP because there's a fear that we are going to have to blindly commit to doing everything that is in the plan, that is not how I see it. It is a roadmap for us to get to where we need to be based on the information that we have now. If that information changes, we're going to have to, change gears. But I don't think that the 5 of you, and I don't think the public should believe that if we approve this plan, then suddenly we're just committed to doing everything in the plan without considering any new information.
So if we don't get the bonding, then we can reassess our plan.
That would be my expectation.
But
I think we'd have to,
If
right?
we want the bonding,
We
have to have that.
We have to
But we can
commit,
change it, but
we
can
have to
change
commit
it.
to this plan, yes.
So if we get the bonding, then that commits us to that. But if we don't, then it doesn't.
Well, I mean, we could still, if we get the bonding, we could say, sorry, state, we don't want that, we're not doing a justice center.
Oh,
But
okay,
that would be
sure.
really silly and counterproductive.
Or we could have a discussion about modifying if we thought that.
Yeah.
So the resolutions, the resolution is important the way you write it out.
Correct.
To have more of a broader look at everything that doesn't tie us into just the bonding.
Yeah, it'll just be that roadmap.
Right.
Yeah.
That would, yeah, so it would be more general than specific. Okay?
Well, the bonding application needs to be specific, but our plan is the roadmap that can change if the bonding is not awarded. That's the only thing that's binding, is what I'm hearing.
So do we have two resolutions? One for the bonding and one for CIP?
No.
No.
Okay.
We have, the resolution will be to approve the CIP, because we need the CIP to be board approved in order to qualify for consideration for the bonding.
And the specifics will be, the term that will be used will be justice center. That's what will
Correct.
be in the thing, so.
Yep.
We're going for a justice center, if that's the best option or not, or what, but that's the justice center, and if we get bonded, if we don't get bonded, then we're not tied to that.
That's all I'm understanding.
And the small bond that's shown in the budget was designed by Ellers to not impact one way or another what happens with the bonding.
Mhm.
It's outside of that, it's stuff you would do anyway, regardless of what you do with that.
That's all.
Will that give us an opportunity to get started on fixing our existing
That was
buildings?
that was the idea. I mean, that's a separate decision you guys still have to
Yeah.
make if you want to for sure start something
Mhm.
next year while you're waiting to see what happens with
This
bonding.
year, actually, right?
I mean, yeah, to start next year, you'd want to get the bond issued, say, by November. You'd have to start the process in order to have public hearings for that, for the small bond.
Mhm.
So you'd have money to do other projects, irregardless of what happens with
And then after that,
the option one plan.
then, I mean,
Yeah.
after the public hearing for the little bond, then we would have somebody who would, I mean, we have these buildings and the list from the needs and the schedule to help guide going forward. And that could begin then, but now what month are we in for building, for fixing buildings, exterior buildings?
Next year.
Yeah, even with the little ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, the thought was to issue it, this is kind of typical, what we've done is to issue it like late this year, so the money's available
For next.
When
Next.
construction season.
Yeah.
for construction season. But you'd have to decide I mean, there's many
Needs.
scenarios of how much even that small bond is and how much you want to tackle. But he threw out one.
So is there enough in that to go for the project manager? You think?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, because that needs to happen pronto, no matter which way we go.
Right.
But we do need this roadmap so that we can apply for the bonding, and once we have the roadmap, we can hire the project manager, and that can help determine the everything. Costs, I mean.
I'm not sure. So, I mean, ideally, the bonding schedule that Brady's describing, we may want to act more quickly than that in terms of getting the construction manager on board.
Yes, yes.
My expectation was that we would use the bonding to do that. But
Gotcha.
the timing is such that we might want to look at
Maybe October.
using
rather
some
than
of our
November.
capital reserve
Right.
funds or something like that to get that firm on board so we can start doing that pre-planning.
And that manager will be overseeing the old buildings too.
Correct.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. We need that expertise
Mhm.
to oversee that.
Absolutely.
We don't, I mean, Brian could do some of that, but, I mean, there's so
Mhm.
much there that it's just not feasible.
I agree.
Yeah.
So the special meeting was in reference to our preliminary budget, right?
Right.
Okay. So we still maybe want to talk about that, but is there more we need to talk about for being ready for the hearing, for the CIP?
I feel confident that we're ready for the hearing. and am already getting written comments from the public, and I think we're on board for that.
Saying do it already?
Yes, and residents who want to give comment but cannot be physically present on the 22nd are more than welcome to provide written comments.
Yes.
And we'll include those in the record.
Yeah. Those are legal comments, so.
Correct.
Correct.
And they're very powerful, I think.
Absolutely.
In person's also very powerful, but it's not practical.
Mhm.
At 9:30 in the morning.
Well, day or night, there's always going to be people that will
True.
need to turn in written
That's true.
comment. So we have our hearing on the 22nd. I want to come back to, do we feel a need before we set a preliminary levy to have an additional meeting?
Sounds like it would be a good idea, but if we have some specifics, and I guess, sorry that I didn't capture the response, it was also just a thought, that just using the fund balance, you're saying you'd rather not in this budget, or looking for advice too, perspective.
That fund balance would be used as a bridge and we paid when the bonding, the little bonding came, like, to help hire a consultant or a manager just to get them on board. And then when the bonding came through, replenish the fund balance. Borrow from Peter till Paul lends us.
Well, we don't have to replenish the fund balance unless we go below our threshold.
Right.
And so that's, I guess maybe I wasn't clear. I never want to go below the threshold. I never want to have to
Understood.
replenish it. But because we have this roadmap, I'm feeling much more comfortable going down to the threshold. And so I'm just trying to do the dance for the pain, minimizing the pain and still making some progress here is what I'm hoping for. Okay. That's where you guys, I mean, we didn't talk about fund balance on there really in the general fund, so that's where you guys would have a lot more insight and advice for using, not using, if the board is willing to look at that, or should we not?
I think once we have a copy of what you just presented,
Mhm.
and then some supplemental information that you could send us on bonding, funding, all of that, maybe we won't need a meeting. We can individually
Okay.
write to you if we have any more questions to be clarified. Would that work?
That works for me. And,
That seems reasonable.
yeah.
I know everybody has a tight schedule.
Yeah. Okay.
I kind of feel this is helpful, though, that we're talking
Oh,
to each other.
absolutely.
You know,
We didn't
that
get to
we,
do that.
you say something and it triggers something in me. So
Yeah.
I think this is helpful when we're talking about a huge
Yeah.
project.
Mhm. And a needed project.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it is.
Mhm.
And we all want to make sure we're considering all options and making good decisions. So I would lean towards, let's set a special meeting. Doesn't mean we get after our public hearing, we might not need it.
Mhm.
And we can say, well, no, we can cancel it. We're all okay, fine.
They're doing it again. Yeah.
Is that what
I don't know.
it was? Just-
Yeah.
What else could it be?
So what about the 29th?
That was God speaking.
They're like, oh,
No, I don't know. I don't know if that's,
I think
A
it would be
good idea or
valuable for
not?
me to learn.
28.
And I'm only thinking of me, selfish as I am, about having the discussion about the next, as we started this conversation, about the budget for next year.
maybe we'll all be on the same page on
Maybe
the
we will be.
22nd. It's not going to be a problem, but
Yeah.
I like to plan for disaster.
But-
And then you said the 29th?
That doesn't work, so
Mhm.
28th, maybe the afternoon of the 28th.
I will not be here.
Okay.
The 30th and 31st would be my best opportunities.
31st in the afternoon?
We could do that. We've got a strategic planning meeting scheduled, but we can,
I'm going from the 29th through the 31st to St. Paul.
okay. Well, between
28?
Commissioner Storley and myself, the weeks of the 28th and September 4th don't work. So what we could,
Positive and say.
So Friday, the 1st is out because it's,
how about, so, okay, the hearing is the 22nd. What about, say, the afternoon of the 24th or the afternoon of Friday, the 25th?
If it won't work for me, I have a wedding.
24th?
Wedding on the 24th?
On the 25th.
Oh,
Yep.
well, maybe the
21st?
24th.
Yep.
So
Thursday.
August 24th.
Thursday, August 24th.
I'll check my calendar at home. I think it's okay.
1 p.m.?
Sure.
Okay.
and how much time to publicize this? Is it 2 weeks?
I think it's just 3
3
days
days.
for a special
So
meeting.
we
Special.
could,
So we
if
put it
someone
in,
comes up with another agenda item or something to, if we need to, because we do an agenda for this, I'm assuming.
well, it would have
It'd be a
to,
very short agenda, but.
Oh, yeah, no, but it would just be, yeah, there'll be discussion on this.
Yes. And for a special meeting, we do have to post those.
Yes.
right.
Correct.
But 3 days.
All right, so we have special meeting tentatively scheduled for the Thursday, August 24th at 1 p.m.
Mhm.
And so what specifically are we, Commissioner Hawkins, you had 2 other things.
Yep,
Yep.
there's 2 things I would like to see. And I'm wondering, I don't know, but
Could you say those 2 things?
So,
out loud?
one was an updated financial management
Management.
plan with our proposed initial levy
Mhm.
request. And the other was the increase in the bond payment. But I'm wondering, do we want to see them separately? Do we want to see the 3.99 million bond payment amount and then an additional, whatever the state match is? Was that a good number to use? I don't remember what it was in the plan that Bruce gave us, but so that we can say, this is what we know we're going to need this next year.
Mhm.
And if we decided to go ahead and start a project,
Oh.
this is
Yeah.
what it's gonna cost us.
Mhm.
Talk to Bruce and see what,
So we'd have those 2 pieces, the insurance information
Fund balance.
and fund balance.
Insurance may not be there the 24th, right?
May not.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
And I don't know that, that's a big deal to me.
Yeah, it is what it,
It
Oh,
is
what are
what
you
it
gonna do?
is.
Right?
yeah, I mean, but it,
Yeah, you can't change
If
it.
we have it, we'll include
right,
it.
yeah.
Okay.
And so I don't know what format would be most helpful for the board, but maybe just having all of those scenarios in different combinations or something. I mean, that's a lot of monkeying around, but.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else on the budget
Well, I just, I'd like to acknowledge Commissioner Storley's frustration at not having received the information in advance, and I did do that deliberately because I didn't want to create expectations about what was going to happen. It's been my experience that when you put things on paper, people start like speculating about what the meaning is, what the assumptions behind everything are, and I wanted us to kind of have a conversation about it and to, again, kind of play with the numbers to look at different scenarios, which ultimately we ended up not doing, at least not with the spreadsheet. But I think this conversation has been really productive and really helpful in terms of next steps on the budget. So, and it's really what committee of the whole meetings are about. They are working sessions for the board to ask questions, to come to, consensus on information that is needed, that kind of thing. And so this has been really helpful for me.
So can we make that special meeting this format? I find this is a lot easier to ask questions.
For sure.
plan? Sure.
Absolutely.
I think it would be helpful instead of sitting up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, we might want to think about changing that format when we start talking about our building renovations. There's other counties that don't have the
Yeah.
quasi-partial moon, they do have a circle, or circle-ish. So,
Don't ask for another question.
We'll renovate the
We
boardroom
can just
before the
rearrange the
next meeting.
furniture.
Okay, so we're
Install
gonna
that
renovate before
circular,
next
yeah.
meeting. Good, yes.
All right, well, thank you all. Very good discussion,
Okay.
very thorough.
Oh,
We have one more item.
And we have, yes.
So, our-
Something, Commissioner?
oh.
All right. So at this point,
all right.
we'd like to discuss our bereavement leave policy, and we're going to ask Leah Ekstrom to come forward, our HR
Oh,
director.
and I was actually, I mean,
You're in charge of this one.
I
I'm here
am.
for support.
yes.
Yeah.
So Leah's got enough going on, so I'll take the lead on this. This came out of discussions that we had with our Labor Management Committee. It is, it has been our policy to provide 3 paid days of bereavement leave for employees. There was a question about whether it would be appropriate to increase that to 5 days for the reason that, we have a lot of employees who have relatives out of the area, perhaps out of state or even out of country, who may have the need to take more than 3 days off, not only to attend to services and whatnot, but also do some of the follow-up work that is needed after a family member dies. And so the request was, would we consider looking at a 5-day paid bereavement period? And I have not done an exhaustive survey of other counties, but I've done a little bit of general research that indicates that a lot of employers provide anywhere from 3 to 5 days. So 5 days is not out of the norm at all. And so this was discussed by the Benefits and Wellness Committee, whose job it would be to recommend a change to a policy like this. And they came to agreement that this was something that they wanted the board to consider and hopefully approve. So that's kind of the story in a nutshell.
And I can just say from personal experience, back in 1999, I had 5 days of bereavement. I had a father who passed away out of state. It allowed me to go down, make arrangements, finalize the eulogy, take care of business with the Veterans Administration. And I got back to work, but I needed those 5 days. And I don't know if other members of this group have similar situations, but it's not unusual, and it hasn't been for a long time, to have 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I can say personally, when family lives a day away, and someone's on their deathbed, you're gonna try to make it before they die, so you're there before, and then if the death happens on a Friday, well, now we have to wait to do something for the memorial service until, so we can end up being 6 or 7, so I do not think 5 is out of line at all. We're up here.
Gives a benefit too to the folks who not only have a Minnesota situation, but far away.
Mhm.
That
Oh,
they
yes.
have to get away to other countries.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
Well, if there is consensus, we can put this on for action. Either, I'm hesitant to put anything on next week's agenda that isn't related to the CIP, but we'll probably have at least a few items.
We can
in
put them on
addition.
the front of the agenda.
Yeah.
I already have a couple for next week.
Yeah. So either that will appear on next week's agenda or possibly the 12th of September. I appreciate your consideration of that.
Well, thank you very much for bringing this forward. I mean, I think it's an important consideration. and
Yeah, I just want to applaud the work that went into it, and this is, I'm proud that this came up through the Labor Management Committee. It's an example of the value of that committee working through things ahead of difficult difficult negotiations, but still being compassionate and really valuing our employees and their loved ones and just the humanity of it. So both the responsiveness and then just going through the process, I think was good. And we have looked at it from different angles too, I feel like, scenarios and just what's practical or not. So it made sense to me too.
Well, thanks for your leadership on this occasion. All right, well, we have our minutes of standing committees. We have budget and facilities, the building committee, and also the airport advisory committee meetings. And with that, we are adjourned.
We do have one correction, I think.
Oh.
On the building committee, I don't think I was there.
Actually, I
All
wasn't
right.
there either. And I also wasn't at the budget committee.
And April Zimmer wasn't there either.
That's built into the.
All right, so we will make sure to correct
Creating the
those.
goal. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Well, should we all go have lunch?
We have a meeting shortly, so I don't think we have time.
How's April doing? Doing well? Just hope.